25,000 Star Destroyers. It sounds like the largest navy ever imagined, and on screen it looks like it. Now divided. The Empire administers roughly 70 million worlds and colonies. That figure comes from Legends-era material, specifically the Force.net synthesis of expanded universe sources, where the galaxy's political makeup breaks down to 1.5 million member and conquered worlds plus 69 million colonies. Current Disney canon is less precise. The official StarWars.com map says trillions of beings living on millions of worlds, which doesn't fix the arithmetic. So, 25,000 ships, 70 million worlds, one Star Destroyer for every 2,800 planets. Stretched across 70 million worlds, 25,000 ships isn't a big navy. It's almost no navy at all. The moment anything goes wrong in two places at once, something goes undefended. And something always goes wrong in two places at once. That 25,000 figure traces back to West End Games' 1989 Imperial Sourcebook, which codified 1,024 sector groups at 24 Imperial-class Star Destroyers each. 24 times 1,024 equals 24,576. Timothy Zahn's 1997 Legends novel, Specter of the Past, first put the rounded figure into an Imperial officer's mouth. The Empire once had over 25,000 Star Destroyers. In current Disney canon, it appears in the 2015 mobile game Star Wars Uprising. The StarWars.com databank and other Disney canon sources describe the fleet only as thousands of warships, without fixing a specific number. Working from the published numbers, Legends primarily, with one Disney-era corroboration, the fraction stays catastrophic regardless of which exact figure you use. Every real empire has run this same equation and come up short. Rome maintained roughly 400,000 soldiers at its 2nd century peak, roughly half deployed along a Rhine-Danube frontier spanning 2,500 kilometers. Not a continuous wall, but watchtower chains and fortified nodes, with mobile legions that could respond only after a breach had already opened. The British governed 315 million Indians by the 1911 census with 75,000 regulars, 1 per 4,200 civilians, a ratio that held only because Indian sepoy units, civil administration, railways, and telegraph networks did most of the actual holding. America operates 11 aircraft carriers today, deploying 2 to 4 forward at any given moment, covering roughly 2% of global ocean, and holding the rest through reaction time and reputation. All three applied the same solution: fortified nodes, local force multipliers, and deterrence across the gaps, and all three eventually lost control at the edges. The Galactic Empire applied the same playbook: Star Destroyers as mobile response, planetary governors as quasi-client administrators, selective terror as deterrence. Each solution carries the same failure mode it always has. Look at what one Star Destroyer actually costs against that map. An Imperial-class Star Destroyer requires 9,235 officers and 27,850 enlisted crew, 37,085 people just to run the ship. Separate from that sits an embarked complement of roughly 9,700 additional personnel: stormtroopers, TIE pilots, walker crews, support staff. Total aboard, approximately 46,785 people, 72 TIE fighters, 20 AT-AT walkers, 30 AT-STs. Formidable numbers. Here is the mechanical problem they conceal. When an Imperial Star Destroyer cedes a standard planetary garrison, it transfers 40 of its 72 TIE fighters to the surface base. The ship's fighter wing drops from 72 to 32, less than half its standard screen, while simultaneously losing its ground assault force. West End Games' own Star Wars Sourcebook documented this directly. The Imperial-class was designed as a combination frontline warship and heavy troop carrier, built to deliver a planetary garrison. That dual purpose is a design compromise. Deploy the garrison, and you've gutted the fighter screen. Retain the fighter screen, and nothing below is garrisoned. A single ship can't fully do both. Occupation numbers confirm the scale of the gap. Historical counterinsurgency doctrine requires roughly 1 soldier per 50 civilians for effective control of a hostile population. A planet with 1 billion inhabitants needs 20 million occupation troops. An Imperial Star Destroyer carries roughly 9,700 total embarked personnel, of whom approximately half are actual line infantry once TIE pilots and vehicle crews are subtracted. 5,000 infantry on a billion-person hostile world falls short of any recognized doctrine for occupation. Insurgents can disperse, wait, and reconstitute faster than a patrol force that size can respond. Hyperspace is the strongest counter-argument. In a universe where ships transit between systems in hours, permanent presence may not be necessary. Credible response time might be enough. This holds in a stable, compliant galaxy. It breaks down when the enemy is designed to strike before response arrives and dissolve before it does, and when your intelligence network is too thin to track movement between strikes. After Yavin, the Empire spent roughly 3 years unable to locate the rebel base. Finding Hoth required a systematic probe droid sweep expensive enough that Vader committed major fleet assets to follow up a single signal. 1 ship for every 2,800 worlds. And the Empire still needed months to locate 1 installation in the Outer Rim. That isn't adequate coverage. That is a government searching blind across a map it doesn't actually hold. Outer Rim governance provides the structural proof. An official Star Wars video on the region states it plainly. For hundreds of years, many different regimes tried to exert their influence over the worlds of the Outer Rim. None succeeded. The Empire formally claims it. On Tatooine, nominally under Imperial jurisdiction, Jabba the Hutt operates openly, holds court, and executes people with no response from Imperial authority. The arrangement was transactional. The Hutts traded intelligence on rebel cells in exchange for the Empire ignoring Hutt operations. De facto autonomy purchased inside formerly Imperial space. Andor showed the garrison problem from inside the installation itself. The base on Aldhani was under strength, isolated, and scheduled for closure. The Empire wasn't building outward into the Rim, it was contracting. Luthen, that season, identified the cause. The Imperial need for control is so desperate because it's so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. Tarkin reached that conclusion years earlier and called it doctrine. Rule through the fear of force rather than force itself. Alderaan's destruction was designed to suppress rebellion across billions of worlds simultaneously. 1 act of terror substituting for 10,000 missing garrisons. The Death Star wasn't built from a position of strength. It was built because the Empire was stretched across an impossible map and needed something to hold the empty squares without physically occupying them. Rebel Alliance military strategy was built around exactly those empty squares. Alliance doctrine from the beginning was explicitly hit and fade. Strike an isolated Imperial asset, withdraw before the nearest sector group could respond. Yavin 4. Remote jungle moon, deep outer rim, no permanent Imperial presence. Hoth. Uninhabited, off major hyperlanes, discovered only after months of probe droid coverage. Dantooine. So remote that Leia named it as a decoy to Tarkin's face, confident the Empire would need time to verify. Chopper base on Atollon, chosen because it didn't appear on Imperial navigation charts. Every base was placed deliberately in the gaps. The regions where the 1 ship per several thousand worlds ratio guaranteed the Empire wasn't there. The X-Wings at Yavin weren't brave underdogs defying the odds. They were a logistics exploit, hitting the one thing the Empire had stationed in a region it couldn't reinforce in time. What would adequate coverage have actually required? The Empire's own sector group framework provides the starting point. 24 ISDs available per sector, across 1,024 sectors. Real navies run at roughly 30 to 40% forward deployment at any given moment, the rest in maintenance, refit, and training cycles. Keeping 24 ISDs genuinely deployable per sector under realistic readiness rates requires approximately 72 in inventory per sector to cover rotation. Across 1,024 sectors, roughly 74,000 Star Destroyers minimum just to make the Empire's own doctrine function at its own stated strength. For deterrent coverage across 70 million worlds, the minimum viable number lands closer to 250,000, one ship per 280 worlds. Still thin, but plausible for a mostly compliant galaxy. Crew those 250,000 ships at the standard 37,085 person complement, and the operating crew alone exceeds 9.25 billion people, roughly Earth's current total population, entirely in uniform, just to run the ships. The galactic population could theoretically sustain those numbers. Constructing, maintaining, supplying, and training for a fleet 10 times the Empire's actual size is a different problem entirely. 25,000 Star Destroyers isn't a fleet that rules a galaxy. It's a fleet that pretends to. Spread across 70 million worlds, it vanishes. One ship for every few thousand planets, holding nothing it isn't physically sitting on top of. The rebels didn't beat the odds. The odds were always in their favor, because there were almost nothing but empty squares on the board, and the Alliance was built to find them. To hold the galaxy, the Empire needed at minimum 3 times its fleet just to honor its own doctrine, and closer to 10 times to meaningfully cover it.